The town of Red Willow sat in a shallow bend of the plains, where the wind never truly rested, and the dust clung to boots like it had a memory. At the edge of town, past the last saloon lantern and the leaning church with its cracked bell, stood the Undertaker's house. It was a narrow building of dark timber and stone, half home, half place of final rest. Danny Hale lived there alone. Most folks knew him only in passing black coat, solemn nod, hands always clean no matter the work he did. He buried the dead with a care that unsettled some and comforted others. He spoke softly, even to corpses, and marked every grave himself, carving names into wood with steady patience. People said it was fitting work for a man who kept his heart locked tight. Danny didn't argue with them. Silence suited him. That morning, he stood in the cemetery behind his house, shovel pressed into the earth, the sky pale and empty above him. A child's grave lay open at his feet, the soil dark and damp from last night's frost. Danny paused, hat in hand, and bowed his head not out of habit, but respect. "Rest easy now," he murmured, voice barely louder than the wind. He had just finished filling the grave when he heard footsteps crunching over gravel. Visitors were rare. Most families came once, maybe twice, and never returned. Danny turned slowly, already bracing himself for grief. But the woman standing near the iron gate didn't look like someone paying respects. She wore a dust-worn coat too thin for the season, her dark hair pulled back but untidy, as if she hadn't cared enough to fix it properly. Her eyes sharp guarded moved across the headstones, not with sorrow, but with defiance. Danny straightened. "Can I help you, ma'am?" She hesitated, fingers curling at her sides. "I'm looking for a grave. Name: Elias Crow." Danny's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. He nodded once and motioned for her to follow. They walked in silence past rows of weathered markers, the names of men and women, long forgotten by the town that used to know them. "This one," Danny said at last, stopping beside a grave set slightly apart from the others. Clara Crow stared at the headstone, her expression unreadable. "So it's true," she whispered. Danny watched her closely. "He was brought in 2 weeks ago. Gunshot wound. No family claimed the body." "I'm his family," she said sharply. Danny inclined his head. "Then I'm sorry for your loss." She laughed short, bitter. "Don't be." The sound startled him more than tears would have. Clara knelt, brushing dust from the carved name, her hand trembling despite her effort to steady it. "You didn't know him," she said. "Not the way I did." Danny said nothing. He knew better than to interrupt the dead's stories. After a moment, Clara stood and faced him. "I don't have money for a stone, or a service. That's already been taken care of," Danny replied. Her eyes narrowed. "Why? Everyone deserves a proper resting place." She studied him, suspicion warring with exhaustion. "You don't even know him." Danny met her gaze. "I know enough." The wind howled through the cemetery, carrying the scent of earth and old wood. Clara shivered, pulling her coat tighter. "I don't plan on staying long," she said. "Just needed to see it with my own eyes." "If you need a place to sit," Danny offered quietly, "there's a bench by the willow." Clara hesitated, then nodded. As she walked past him, Danny felt it. A shift, subtle but certain. Like a grave just opened, something unsettled had come to rest in his quiet world. And he had the strange feeling it wouldn't stay buried. Clara sat on the weathered bench beneath the willow tree, its long branches swaying like tired arms above her. The cemetery was quiet again, save for the wind and the faint creak of the iron gate. Danny lingered nearby, unsure whether to leave her alone or stay within reach. Years of tending grief had taught him when silence was needed, but Clara's grief felt different, sharper, unfinished. She broke the quiet first. "You live here?" Danny nodded. "House is just beyond the stones." "Must be lonely." He considered the word. "It's peaceful." She gave a soft scoff. "That's one way to say it." Danny leaned against a headstone, a respectful distance away. "You don't have to talk," he said. "But you can." Clara traced the grain of the bench with her finger. "Elias wasn't supposed to die like that." "Most weren't," Danny thought, but he didn't say it. He always said Red Willow would kill him one day, she continued. Guess he was right. Did you live here once? Danny asked gently. Long enough to know better. Her jaw tightened. I left. Thought I could outrun what he was becoming. She laughed again, softer this time. Turns out the past has better legs. Danny watched her carefully. There was no mistaking it. Now Clara wasn't just mourning. She was carrying guilt, heavy and unrelenting. I came back too late, she said. That's the part that keeps clawing at me. Danny pushed off the stone. You came back at all. That doesn't undo anything. No, he agreed. But it means you still care. Clara looked at him then, really looked at the lines etched by solitude around his eyes, at the careful distance he kept from the living. You talk like a man who's made peace with regret. He shook his head. Not peace, understanding. She studied him a moment longer. What did you lose, Danny Hale? The question landed heavier than she likely intended. He hesitated, then answered honestly. My wife, 10 years ago. Fever took her in 3 days. I'm sorry, so is everyone, he said softly. But sorry doesn't bring anyone back. They sat in silence again, but it felt different, now shared instead of separate. When Clara stood, the sun was dipping low, painting the headstones gold. I don't have a place to stay. Danny's brows drew together. The hotel's still standing. Can't afford it. He considered for only a moment. There's a spare room. She stiffened. I don't want charity. It's not charity, he said. It's a roof and supper. No obligations. Her eyes searched his face for something, pity maybe, or expectation. She found neither. Just for the night, she said at last. That's fine. The Undertaker's house was simple but clean, smelling faintly of soap and cedar. Clara glanced around, as if expecting ghosts to rise from the floorboards. They don't wander, Danny said, noticing her tension. The dead tend to stay where they're put. That's more than I can say for the living, she muttered. They ate in near silence. Stew and bread, humble but warm. Clara's shoulders relaxed bit by bit, exhaustion finally overtaking anger. Before turning in, she paused at the doorway of her room. You didn't have to do this. Danny met her gaze. I know. As she closed the door, Danny stood alone in the lamplit hallway, listening to the house settle around him. He hadn't shared his space, his carefully ordered solitude in a long time. And yet, instead of feeling unsettled, he felt something unfamiliar stir. Hope. Morning came softly to the Undertaker's house, filtered through thin curtains and the steady hush of wind moving through the graveyard. Danny was already awake, as he always was, seated at the small kitchen table with a ledger open before him. He recorded dates, names, and causes of death, in careful ink proof that each life, no matter how brief or forgotten, had mattered. He heard Clara before he saw her. Her footsteps were hesitant, like someone unsure whether they were welcome in daylight. Morning, she said. Danny looked up. Coffee's fresh. She poured herself a cup, wrapping her hands around it, as if warmth were something she'd gone without for too long. You always live this quietly. Mostly. Doesn't it ever get heavy? She asked. Being surrounded by endings. He considered that. Endings are honest. It's the in-between that lies. Clara watched him over the rim of her cup. You're an odd man, Danny Hale. He smiled faintly. So, I've been told. Later that morning, Clara wandered the cemetery while Danny worked. She read headstones, lingering over dates and names, some worn nearly smooth by time. When she reached Ilias's grave again, her breath caught. Danny approached slowly. You don't have to face it all at once. I don't know how else to do it, she said. If I stop, I think it'll swallow me. He knelt beside her and adjusted the small wooden marker, straightening it with care. Then keep moving, he said. But don't carry it alone. Her eyes glistened. You don't even know me. Knowing someone isn't the same as understanding them. She let out a shaky breath. Elias got mixed up with bad men. Gambling, guns. I warned him. I left because I couldn't watch him destroy himself. And now, you think leaving caused it? Was the word cracked? Danny stood, extending a hand. After a beat, she took it. The contact was brief, but it grounded them both. That afternoon, a stranger rode into town. Clara saw him first, a tall man with a scar along his jaw, lingering too long near the saloon before glancing toward the cemetery. Her stomach dropped. Danny noticed her pale face. "You all right?" "He followed me," she whispered. "Foo. Someone Elias owed." Danny's expression hardened. "You're safe here." As if summoned, the man approached the iron gate. "You, Clara Crow." Danny stepped forward before she could answer. "This is private property." The man smirked. "Just looking to collect." "There's nothing to collect," Clara said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Elias is dead. That don't clear a debt." Danny didn't raise his voice. "You'll leave." The man eyed him coldly. "Or you'll find out why even the dead are treated with respect here." The silence stretched. Finally, the man spat in the dirt and backed away. "This ain't over." When he was gone, Clara's knees nearly gave out. Danny guided her inside, closing the door firmly behind them. "You can't run from this forever," he said gently, "but you don't have to face it today." She looked at him. Fear and gratitude tangled together. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated. Then, because mercy shouldn't end at the grave. For the first time since arriving in Red Willow, Clara cried not from anger or guilt, but relief. And Danny held space for her tears, knowing that whatever had taken root between them now was no longer quiet. It was alive. The threat of the stranger lingered like a low storm cloud over Red Willow, but life stubborn and unyielding went on. Danny kept working. Bodies still arrived. Graves still needed digging. And Clara, with nowhere else to go, and no desire to return to the road just yet, stayed. She began helping in small ways at first, sweeping the porch, bringing fresh flowers to neglected graves, sitting quietly nearby while Danny worked, as if her presence alone eased the weight he carried. "You don't have to do all this," Danny told her one evening, as she arranged wildflowers beside an unmarked stone. "I know," she said, "but I want to." He realized then how long it had been since anyone wanted to share his silence. As days passed, Clara started sleeping through the night. The lines of tension on her face softened. She laughed once, soft, surprised, like the sound startled her as much as it did Danny. That night, they sat on the porch, watching the sky bleed into sunset. "You ever think about leaving?" Clara asked. Danny shook his head. "This place needs someone to remember." "And you," she pressed. "What do you need?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I didn't need much." She nodded. "I thought running meant freedom." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or forgiveness. But peace never lasts long without a price. The stranger returned 2 nights later, this time with company. Clara heard the horses first. Danny was already reaching for the shotgun he kept by the door. "You don't have to do this," she said, fear sharp in her voice. "Yes, I do." They stepped outside together. The men dismounted, faces hard and impatient. "We want the girl," the scarred one said. "Debt still stands." "She's not going anywhere," Danny replied. One of the men laughed. "You, an Undertaker, not a lawman." Danny raised the shotgun not to aim, but to show resolve. "I bury men every week. I don't scare easy." The standoff, stretched breath, held tight in every chest. Finally, the scarred man cursed. "Fine, but this town won't protect her forever." When they rode off, Clara collapsed against Danny, shaking. "I don't want to be the reason you get hurt," she whispered. "You're not a reason," he said firmly. "You're a choice." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "I've spent my whole life being someone's burden." "Then let me be yours for a while," he said. The kiss that followed was hesitant. Tender, 2 wounded souls, testing whether closeness could heal instead of harm. When they pulled apart, the world felt quieter, as if even the dead were listening. Later, lying awake in separate rooms, both knew the truth. Love had found them in a place meant for endings, and it refused to stay buried. The men never came back. Weeks passed, then months, and Red Willow settled into its familiar rhythm again. Word spread quietly. the way important truths often do that, the Undertaker's ground was no place for unfinished business. Some said Danny Hale had a way of making men think twice. Others said the dead watched over him. Clara stayed. At first, she told herself it was temporary, long enough to save a little money, long enough to let the past stop screaming. But seasons changed, and she was still there, walking the cemetery paths at dawn, helping Danny carve headstones, bringing warmth and laughter into a house that had long known only stillness. She spoke of Elias less, not because she'd forgotten him, but because the ache had softened into something gentler memory, without punishment. One afternoon, Clara found Danny repairing a broken fence along the far edge of the graves. "You're smiling," she said. He paused, surprised. "Am I?" "Yes," she replied. "You do that more now." He set the hammer down. "So do you." They stood together, gazing over the rows of markers, each one a reminder of endings, but also of care. "I used to think mercy was something you gave the dead," Danny said. "A clean burial. A name that wouldn't be lost." "And now?" Clara asked. "And now, I think it's also for the living. For those who survive what they shouldn't." She reached for his hand. "You gave me that." "So did you," he said. "You taught me the living still need tending." They married in the spring, beneath the willow tree. No grand crowd, just a handful of townsfolk, a soft breeze, and the quiet blessing of the dead who rested nearby. Clara didn't see it as strange. She found comfort in knowing love could bloom even in places shaped by loss. Years later, when travelers passed Red Willow, they spoke of an Undertaker who buried the dead with honor and of his wife, who reminded the living how to stay. Clara never did bury her past. She learned instead to walk beside it, unafraid. And Danny, once the loneliest man in town, discovered that even among the dead, mercy could give life. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.